All right, 9/11/25. It is Unit 1. It is Day 5. All right, Unit 1, Day 5. Last class, we had a shortened period, so we lectured. We didn't have time to do the reading, which hopefully you guys had done anyways. But we're just going to briefly go over and walk through as an outline because we won't even have time to read all of this reading because we're smashing things together. We're going to look at, we're going to start at Genesis chapter 15, and we're going to go through and outline them a little bit. Look at the major highlights of events, because what we're going to end up seeing is the story happens twice, all right? Stories happen twice. Not all of them, but some of them. I'm going to put this down here that this is evidence of two traditions. Can't see at all because the light is on.
Put the blind on.
Yeah, you can put the blinds on. Or we'll just do that. I'll turn it back on later. So, all right, it's evidence of two traditions, right? We talked last class that Genesis has at least two traditions coming together in order to show us narratives about the law. Narratives about the law. Yes?
Could those traditions be from the two kingdoms of Israel?
Could the two traditions be from the two kingdoms of Israel? Good question. I honestly don't know the exact answer. It's possible, yeah. We believe that there's at least two groups of people that are becoming Israel, so probably something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know a good answer to that, Elliot, to be honest with you. I'd just say maybe. But I don't know that anybody has a great answer. All right, but it is at least two traditions, and it's narratives about the law. All right, that is what we're going to see, because remember, Torah, the first 5 books, this semester we're not doing Old Testament, we're calling it Tanakh class, right? We're going through that order. We're looking at the Torah equals the law, the first 5 books. So we get those things, and we get those in Genesis, especially today. All right, all of these that we're going to look at are in some way, of those 3 story types, all of these are in some way those law and order stories, in some way or another. Now, I would argue that has polemic elements in some, and it has origin elements at others, but they are in some way law and order stories. They are about how we get the law and why we do things the way we do. So we're going to start walking through this, and we're going to wrestle with some difficult things today. All right, I want to give you guys the heads up, give you guys some trigger warning here. We will wrestle with some big things, and we're going to ask ourselves this question. What do we do when our faith heroes are bad? All right, I'm going to use some explicit language about this stuff, around this stuff, who these guys are. I'm going to look at Abraham, and this is the question we need to wrestle with today, is what do we do when our faith heroes are bad? All right, so we talked last class about Genesis chapter 12, right? Talked about Genesis 12. I'm going to change this to a 12. Genesis chapter 12. Abram to Egypt. And he sex traffics wife. All right. Abram goes to Egypt. Apparently, his wife is a total baddie. And so, is that slang okay for me to use? You guys like that one? Oh, it's a cuss word? Oh, it's a cuss word? Okay, so she's an absolute smoke show. Is that one better?
Yes.
Alright, she just absolutely slays. Her makeup eats. Which one's better? Which one's better?
The first one.
Alright, anyways. Apparently she's a total baddie. So, he's afraid that he's going to get killed because of how good she looks. Like, literally the Bible says she's so beautiful that Abraham is scared that he will be killed so that they can take his wife from him. Alright? So, if that's not the definition of a baddie, I don't know what is. Yeah.
Isn't she like 90?
I think she's like 65 at this point. Yeah. Yeah, she's, I mean, that's one hot grandma apparently, right? She's not a grandma though. She can't have kids, but she's apparently very attractive. Yes. Why are they all old? That's a really good question. I would like to get into that. We'll do that next class. I'll talk about that, about why they're all old. Probably just because they're picturing them as old people for whatever reason, because they're stories that have been around forever. I think that that's a good thing that kind of goes, maybe this is in our myth category. All right, guys, let's focus up. All right, so Abram goes to Egypt, where he ends up sex trafficking his wife. That's not a good thing, right? Believe it or not, we're not supposed to do that. So this is where we start wrestling with this question straight away. This is what gives me, I'm going to use some more slang here, it gives me the ick, all right, about the Abraham story. I don't love the Abraham story. I feel sometimes it's tough for me because we see this guy get praised and he's doing this. He goes here. Now, he doesn't get in trouble. He's not condemned for it from the Bible. It's just he does that thing. If anything, it's his lack of faith is the problem. All right. And again, this story echoes the Exodus. All right, so then we jump to chapter 15. We had some more. We have some more problematic stuff in happening in that other in chapters 13, 14, but we're not going to look at that today. But there's some problematic stuff is there as well. All right, so Genesis chapter 15. God and Abram make a covenant. Make a covenant. Do we all remember last class, somebody shout out from the notes, what type of covenant is this? No, look at your notes from last class. Today's Unit 1 Day 5. Look at Unit 1 Day 4.
I got you. These dudes.
Shout it out.
Mr. Abraham.
It's the Abrahamic covenant, but what type of covenant is the Abrahamic covenant?
God's promise.
What?
Covenant between ruler and subject.
I heard it somewhere.
Ruler and subject.
Oh yeah, between ruler and subject. Yeah, or suzerainic, right? Okay. Yeah. Good job, Michelle. You had it there. All right, suzerainic. Suzerainic covenant. All right, it's a suzerainic covenant. But remember, Abram doesn't have to do anything here. All right? Abram doesn't have to do anything. He just gets this promise and commitment from God. All right? So this is kind of our tradition 1 is happening in here. This is our first tradition that we see. Now, you could argue this stuff happened multiple times, but I don't know that the language of the text is going to tell us that. That's just us trying to figure out why this story is in there twice. So either it happens twice, maybe, or it's a few traditions being blended together, maybe. All right? So we're going to look at it, though, with the assumption it's a few traditions. All right, then we get to Genesis 17. All right. We're going to start getting rougher and rougher as to what happens, believe it or not. All right, so Genesis chapter 17. Abram and his wife, Abram and Sarai, are infertile. Yeah, does anybody know what that means? They can't have no babies.
Oh, shucks.
Are infertile. Now, I'll say this. My wife and I have this issue. We can't biologically have kids, all right? This is a reality, and
Kidnap.
it is emotionally draining. It's emotionally taxing, all right? So if we were to write Midrash, you could write something, and I think that would actually be really powerful. What are they truly feeling to go to this level of desperation? All right, the level of desperation they go through is that they go through surrogacy. They do. Does anybody know what surrogacy is?
Is, no, I don't know.
All right. So surrogacy, I'm going to block this for a second. Surrogacy is where you have another woman bear your child. All right, typically it's not that you do have regular intercourse, but it's a medical procedure where they will, I'm going to move in 1 second. I'm standing here on purpose. All right, it's a medical procedure done on purpose now in modern times where they put everything inside of another woman in order for her to get pregnant, and it's a medical procedure. But in ancient times, it was normal to do this, to do slave surrogacy. All right. Now you guys are all 14 or 15, right?
No.
I'm 11.
I'm 17.
You're all old enough. We all know how babies are made, right?
No, I don't want to know how babies are made.
You're immature.
All right. We all know babies are made through intercourse, right? In this case, with slave surrogacy, guys, focus up, be serious, please. With slave surrogacy, the thing is, this is rape, all right? I just want to be very clear. Abraham rapes a slave, all right? Abraham rapes his slave. Abraham rapes his slave
Great.
and has Ishmael. All right, guys, are we beginning to see why I put this question up here?
Yes.
Right? This is one of the guys that we're supposed to revere in Scripture. And so far, he is sex trafficked and raped. So then we get to chapter 20. Surely he's going to be repentant, right?
Yeah. No,
Genesis 20. All right. So as we go through, Abram then, in chapter 20,
Oh my God.
sex traffics his wife again. Same thing as before. All right. Again, she's a total baddie. He's afraid he's going to get killed. So he passes her off as his sister and passes her to the king because he wants to preserve his own life. Right. This is rough. We don't love this, and I get that. But then in Genesis 21, Sarah. All right. So, Sarah, his wife has Isaac, and gets mad at Hagar, the slave. All right. So, Sarah, his wife, has Isaac. They get pregnant. Finally, he's like 90. She's 70. I think that's way too old to be having kids.
How did
Alright.
she even have kids?
Well, that might give us a hint
Guys.
that might give us a hint as to our story type, right? When I ask you, is this myth or history somewhere else? Might give you some hints, right? Now, Sarah, his wife, has Isaac, and she gets mad at Hagar, the slave, because Hagar, the slave, is making fun of Isaac. All right, so Hagar and her son Ishmael make fun of Isaac, and so Sarah gets mad. So what is Abraham going to do? Abraham does love this kid. He's his son after all. What is he going to do? What do you think Sarah and Abram are going to do? Anybody? I'm going to move to, so I'm not writing on the bottom. I'm going to put Genesis 21b. Anybody got a guess as to what's about to happen here?
Who won't kill him?
Sacrifice.
Send Ishmael, that's the son, Ishmael and Hagar to die in wilderness. All right. All right. They send Ishmael and Hagar to die in the wilderness. All right. This is, guys, I know we're doing big overview highlights, but this is rough. All right. This is where we get to an origin story. Because this is actually an origin story for another people. Right? The Ishmaelites. This is a different group. This is their origin story. When I say what types of story this is, absolutely this is some origin stuff. This is mythologizing. This is also the two sons, right? One who is loved and one who is abandoned. The two sons motif is common. All right, I'll put it here. Two sons motif or story type motif is common in Genesis. All right, it's regular. We're going to get this all over the place. These are our origin stories all over the place. We'll pay attention to these. All right, they get sent. Now, Genesis 22, this is where we're going to camp out for a little bit longer once we get here. And we're going to start asking some more questions. Try to wrestle with this some more, all right? And when we do Midrash today, Midrash is about trying to figure this out, at least for me. Genesis 22 is God commands Isaac sacrificed and Abram obeys. And you know what, guys? I forgot. And back in 17 is where I was supposed to do this. We're going to do this, and then we're going to talk more about the covenant that happened back here. Because I forgot to mention the covenant again, but we're going to talk about child sacrifice. This is going to be our big topic today, and we're going to talk about the covenant of circumcision. All right, so we're going to camp out on this for just a little bit. All right, so God commands Isaac sacrifice, and Abram then obeys. Now, this is where a lot of people are going to start going, this is definitely myth stuff. And a lot of people are really into this being historical. I want to mention the Bible seems to treat this as a historical thing. All right, at least arguably. The book of Hebrews in the New Testament, so several hundred years later, you can just sign out on their tablet. Several hundred years later, the author of Hebrews seems to see this as historical. That's a debatable topic, but we'll lean towards that being the case. But the thing about it is child sacrifice was a real thing, all right? It was a very, very real practice. And this is where I said we get some polemic stuff, or maybe law and order stuff. I would argue that what we're getting here is we're going to get this idea that we don't do child sacrifice. Those religions may, right? Which is why Abram was so quick to obey. Abram would have been quick to obey because, yeah, it's normal. Why wouldn't I do that, right? I've seen it done. Who knows? Maybe he had done it. Probably not. It says he had never had kids, right? But maybe he had been around it. He knew about child sacrifice. That was a thing. The biblical authors knew about child sacrifice. So when he obeys, it's not just an act of faith. It's also I guess that's going to happen, right? But it shows that God is different. So this is some of our polemic element happens here, where it's God is different and better because he doesn't require that stuff, right? We get an institution, and again, I keep saying this is probably definitely some law and origin stuff, right? Why we do what we do is because here we get the atoning sacrifice, or sacrifice of atonement. Sacrifice of atonement. In other words, aka the scapegoat. Alright? Now this happens again in Exodus as well. This is why some people would say that this tradition that's going on in this group is Abrahamic, right? And they're actually going to split Mosaic and Abrahamic traditions as their own things as well. But Anyways, sacrifice of atonement, aka the scapegoat. Do we all know what a scapegoat is? Has anybody heard this? Some of us do, some of us don't. All right, scapegoat is, let's say you and your friends are goofing off in the hallway, right? There's 5 or 6 of you. One of your friends is maybe the more likely culprit, right? So Brooklyn is goofing off with her friends in the hallway, and they all go, Brooklyn's the loudest one. Let's scapegoat her. All right, they're not going to trust her over us. So I'm going to say that she did it, right? So they all blame her and get her to take the blame. Meanwhile, they let themselves off scot-free, and she takes all the trouble, and they say it was all her, blah, blah, blah. She takes all the blame from Miss Garcia, right? And all the blame from her parents. Now, that's not fair to Brooklyn, right? It's not fair to her that I'm picking on her, but too bad. You're the most vocal person in this class, so vocal, talkative, interactive with me, self-confident. That's true. I also have the best hair. So, classic Mr. Lang joke. All right. So, a scapegoat is the person that takes the fall for other people, right? The sacrifice of atonement is this. It's where you sacrifice an animal because you should be punished, right? God should punish us. This is unique to Judaism, right? At the time, at least, it was unique to Judaism. The Israelites. Judaism / Israelites. All right? Unique to Israelites. Other religions don't have this, but this religion holds we have to pay sacrifice. Not a sacrifice to get something, but a sacrifice to pay for something, right? Because we have sinned, we have done something wrong, we owe something of ourselves to God, and it's supposed to be us, but instead, here we get the sacrifice of atonement, where God says, you can offer up something else instead of your son. You can offer up something else instead of you, right? You can have something pay in your place. So we're going to get this theme. This is a big deal theme, and it's unique to Judaism, all right? We get this. Now we have the other thing. Part of why this is unique is because of the covenants, right? Abrahamic covenant. Let's walk through this because we went through our quick outline. Abrahamic covenant happens twice. All right, this is our last little area. Abrahamic covenant happens twice. First time, chapter 15. All right, chapter 15. Abraham does nothing. We knew this one, right? Abram at that time does nothing. And then second is 17. Chapter 17. Abraham and household must be circumcised. All right, who knows what circumcision is? Anybody? A few of us do. All right, you guys, I think just from that, you guys are going to have no problem with this next part. We're going to say the word circumcised and circumcision a whole lot this semester, all right? Yeah, so circumcised means somebody had this happen to them. The circumcision is the action, all right? So what we're going to do to try to get ourselves comfortable with it, you got to stay here for this first, Benny. All right, I'm going to count to 3, and as a class, we're all going to say circumcision nice and loud. So 1, 2, 3, circumcision. Another time, 1, 2, 3, circumcision. 1, 2, 3, circumcision. All right, now that we're comfortable with circumcision, because when we read our Bible passage today, it's in there about 20 times, all right? So we just need to try to get comfortable with it. If you don't know what circumcision is, males are born with what's called a foreskin, all right? It's on the end of the penis. I'm not your health teacher, so I'm not going to go more into this, but on the end of the male penis, at birth, it's what's called the foreskin, all right? I can keep saying penis if I have to just get us out of this, all right? But the reality is, it's in the Bible a lot, all right? It loves to talk about it. When we get to the prophets, they love to make penis jokes, all right? They make these jokes. These jokes are in the Bible like you wouldn't believe. There's one, we're going to talk about it this semester, and we're going to read the King James because that's the dirtiest version, all right? But we're going to read that, this semester. We're going to talk about these things. So we have to get used to it, all right? So Abram is told, actually, Benny's going to go. He's asked, I think he asked next. Is that right? And then Kamsi, you needed to go? All right, Benny, you can go ahead and go to the bathroom, sign out. All right, so this is what has to happen for God to follow up with these promises, right? Now, we see a bit of an issue because this one seemingly had happened and they have the same promises. And then here, Abram actually has to do something. So at 99 years old, or 90 years old, he circumcises himself with a flint knife, right? He's like in his 90s, and he circumcises himself, his son, and his entire household with a flint knife. If you don't know what a flint knife is, it's a knife made out of stone.
A lot, like they were no anesthesia.
No, none of that.
Ew.
He just walks out into the desert and just goes after it with a knife. All right? Now, it's crazy. But he's got to do this. So here's the thing, guys. This is a big deal for Jews and for Israelites. They cared about this. This is arguably one of the reasons they identify themselves as having to be in exile is as punishment for not doing this thing anymore. All right? They care a great deal about it. Eliud and stuff. Yeah, we're almost done though. So they care about this. Now this is where I say this is probably a Law and Order story, right? If you say it's a myth, the easiest thing to deal with, and how we deal with this question is to say this is all myth. Yeah. All right. To say this is all myth, so that we don't have to deal with the fact that our faith hero did all of this stuff, right? Maybe it's just a myth to try to explain this. But if it's historical, I want to leave us with this. Here's our little pastoral thing to leave with. The point is his faith. All right. The point is faith. Yeah. The point is Abram's faith. See, every time he's told to do something, he doesn't argue, he doesn't whine, right? It's not a student being asked to write a single sentence. He just goes, all right, I'll go do it. He immediately obeys. And it's counted to him as righteousness. That's the term that we use, right? It's not because he's a righteous person that we can see this, right? It's not because he did good stuff all the time. It's because he had faith. This is the point of Abram, at least if you take it in this super historic, literal way. Now, I don't know which way you got to take it. All right, there's a lot of things here that you could go, this seems like a myth. It's easier for us emotionally if it's a myth, right? At least it is for me. I'd rather say this is a myth and they're trying to explain things. But then we're stuck with the question of why would they tell this story with all this bad stuff, right? Why would they do that? But also, why would this guy be praised if he does this stuff, right? But it's pretty normal for the time. So he's within the time period accurately doing what it said he would do. All right, that being said, I went a little bit longer. Oops.